Oscar Piastri's incredible ascent was supposed to continue with the Spanish Grand Prix, when he drove to win flawlessly and McLaren solidified their hold on the Constructors' Championship. However, the real drama was unfolding a few spots behind. Pester as the headlines were being printed for his fifth victory of the season. This was because in the final laps of the race under the scorching Barcelona sun, four-time world champion and unrelenting racer Max Verstappen crossed a line, and the stewards didn't think twice about reacting. As the dust settles, Verstappen is at the center of yet another intense tempest involving Mercedes and has been given a painful 10-second penalty, dropping him from P5 to P10. Russell, George, the situation wasn't limited to racing. It was an instance of disobedience, annoyance, and possibly a breaking point in the mind. However, how did this happen? Why did Verstappen disobey his own team? And what does this reveal about the internal turmoil at Red Bull? You must hear this story in its entirety if you're a serious Formula One fan. Because what's about to happen could be the spark that reignites the title fight. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us dissect it. We must zoom out to completely understand what transpired between Max Verstappen and George Russell at the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, since it involved more than just a foolish lunge or an impromptu error. This had to do with pressure, dissatisfaction, and a Red Bull squad that is clearly disintegrating for the first time in years. Let's establish the scene. 5 laps remain in lap 60, an unexpected incident at turn 10. Kimi Antonelli loses control of his Mercedes and gets buried in the gravel. When the safety car deploys, a high-stakes game of pit lane roulette begins. In search of new, soft tires, all of the front rows dive into the pits. Except for Max Verstappen, everyone at Red Bull had run out of soft drinks. After receiving a set of worn hard tires, the only compound he had access to, Verstappen returned to the race on a compound that would significantly disadvantage him, particularly when he faced the McLarens, Ferraris, and Mercedes that were pursuing him, especially Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, George Russell, and Charles Leclerc, everybody on softs. In what has turned into an unpredictable and fiercely competitive competition, everyone is vying for the most points. As the race resumes on lap 61, Verstappen is suddenly a sitting duck in P3, holding to his place more with resolve than with grip. Russell is right behind him with soft tires and DRS support. But Leclerc immediately surges at Verstappen into turn 1 and makes the move stick to take third. The Mercedes driver also makes a move. Although this move was well known in Verstappen's playbook, it was obviously against the letter of the rulebook. Verstappen defends vigorously, runs wide off the track, and rejoins ahead of Russell. The stewards pay attention. Importantly, Red Bull's own race engineer takes notice. Guillermo Lambias pays attention. On the radio, Lambiasi delivers the directive in a composed yet strong manner. Max allowed Russell to pass. It was an order, not a suggestion, and you could practically feel Verstappen's rage erupting at that very instant. Verstappen felt that this was unfair since he had battled valiantly for track position only to have his own garage order him to return it. However, this was a matter of protocol rather than pride, and Red Bull was aware that the stewards were closely observing them and wanted to avoid a time penalty. They desired a fresh start. When they got close to turn 5, Max seemed to give way. He slowed down on the racing line and Russell tried to sneak inside, thinking Verstappen was playing ball. Then, all of a sudden, in what can only be described as a protest action, Verstappen turned at the top of the corner, purposefully and very slightly brushing the side of Russell's car. No significant damage or retirements occurred. Both drivers proceeded, but everyone in the vicinity was aware of what had just transpired. It was a symbolic statement rather than a racing mishap. Russell responded instantly and unvarnished on the air. What happened was the unadulterated, shocked response of a driver who felt caught off guard and possibly even threatened by a competitor, who many believe to be the most mercilessly clinical in the sport. Verstappen eventually gave up the position, but the damage had already been done not to the car, but to his race, his reputation, and possibly his position on the team. The stewards delivered the ruling a few minutes later. As the checkered flag waved and Piastri crossed the finish line to win his 6th Grand Prix of the year, Verstappen was given a 10-second time penalty for creating a collision. This resulted in a devastating 7th-place drop in P10, which not only cost him points but also seriously jeopardized his season trajectory. What does all of this mean, then? First of all, this episode wasn't isolated. Rather, it was a part of a larger story in which Verstappen is no longer leading the race in Red Bull is no longer the dominant power. Ever since the initial flyaway rounds, McLaren has consistently improved their position. Lando Norris has fiercely supported Oscar Piastri's consistency, which has been on par with that of a world champion. Mercedes and Ferrari are also included, indicating that Verstappen doesn't do scraps, and the once invincible Red Bull team is now fighting tooth and claw for scraps. He is accustomed to taking the initiative, winning, and setting the terms of conflict. But the battlefield in 2025 will be different. Additionally, Max himself is beginning to show signs of weakness when the pressure mounts, in addition to the Red Bull tactic. Verstappen has before resisted team directives, but this time was unique. This went beyond simply arguing about tire selections or disregarding a strategic recommendation. This was an act of resistance and physical defiance that put his engineer's trust at risk, put him in danger of punishment. And this raises the question of whether Verstappen is starting to doubt Red Bull. There may be increasing strain behind the scenes, according to some paddock rumors. The loss of Adrian earlier in the season was devastating. Upgrades haven't had the desired effect on the vehicle. Decisions about strategy have been dubious, and Yuki Tsunoda Max finds himself isolated, outgunned, and currently under investigation because Verstappen's buddy has not contributed to the tempo and has not offered much in the way of a rear guard fight. After the race, Sky Sports analyst Nico Rosberg wasn't holding back when he called the maneuver completely unacceptable, and even implied that Verstappen should have been disqualified for seeing a black flag. Although that is a grave accusation, it illustrates the extent to which this issue has escalated. It's more than just a brawl between two adversaries. In a season when tensions are escalating throughout the grid, this is a flashpoint moment. In that regard, McLaren rather than Mercedes may be the true victor of this Verstappen-Russell match. What do you think, then? Was Verstappen's action a deliberate act of desperation or a moment of insanity? More significantly, will Red Bull survive? Or are we seeing the beginnings of an impending collapse? The 2025 season is far from finished, so please share your thoughts in the comments section and stay focused.